The scream tore through the night. "Don't let them take me!" It came from the barn. At first, Samuel Greaves thought the wind had played a trick on him. He'd heard coyotes sound near human before, but this wasn't an echo, and it wasn't no animal. It was a girl's voice, desperate, splintered. His lantern shook in his hand as he slid the barn doors apart. Inside, the horses stamped nervously, their eyes wide with the same fear pounding in his chest. And then he saw her, curled on the hay, half covered by a torn sheet, her body trembling, as though she'd been dragged through hell. She clutched the fabric so tight her knuckles bled. Her lips moved, but the words broke apart, ragged and thin. "Don't let them take me." Samuel froze. He wasn't a man to scare easy, but the sight knocked the air clean from his lungs. The sheet slipped from her shoulder, and beneath it was something that made his gut twist, marks carved deep into her skin. Not the kind of scars time makes, but fresh ones. Symbols, deliberate. He lifted the sheet higher, just enough to see, and shook. He knew that mark, knew it because years back he'd buried a man who bore the same one, and swore he'd never speak of it again. The girl's eyes snapped open. She stared at him, as if he was the only thing tethering her to this earth. "Please," she whispered, "they'll come back." The horses stirred again, snorting, pressing against their stalls. Outside, through the winter-stilled silence, Samuel thought he heard it too. Hoofbeats, distant, but steady. He blew out the lantern at once, leaving them in shadow, his heart hammered like a war drum. Whoever she was, whatever devil chased her, he knew one thing. Trouble didn't knock. It rode in with fire and steel, and it was riding closer. Samuel stood there, hands still on the sheet, the girl's breath ragged at his feet, and for the first time in years he felt the weight of Cho. Ice pressing down. Save her, and invite the past he thought he'd buried to come clawing back. Leave her, and hear that scream haunt him till the grave. The hoofbeats drew nearer, gravel crunching under iron. Samuel's hand slipped toward the old rifle leaning against the stall. Then, silence. The kind of silence that meant someone was right outside his door. The silence stretched until it cracked. A single knock, slow, deliberate, thudded against the barn door. Samuel's grip tightened on the rifle. He didn't answer. Another knock, harder this time, then a voice, smooth as creek water, but carrying iron underneath. "Evening, Greaves. We seen a light in your barn. Best not be hiding anything that don't belong to you." The girl's hand shot out, clutching his boot. Her whisper was sharp, desperate. "Don't let them take me." Samuel's breath came heavy, the way it had in those first nights after his wife and boy were buried. The nights where every creak of the house reminded him of what he'd lost. He looked down at the girl. She was skin and bones, shaking so bad he thought she'd shake herself apart. And those marks, God help him, those marks meant she wasn't just running from men. She was running from a story that didn't end clean. The voice outside came again, rougher. "We're riding on. But if you've seen a girl, thin, dark hair, cut up some, you best speak it plain. She's running from justice. Dangerous. We aim to put her back where she belongs." Samuel didn't move. Dangerous? The girl's fingers dug into his boot as if the very word burned her. He thought of opening the door, of handing her over, walking back inside his cabin, pouring a drink, and forgetting the whole cursed night. It would be easy. Hell, it would be safer. The world had taught him enough times. Mercy gets you nothing but another grave to dig. But when he crouched, when he met her eyes in that dark barn, he didn't see danger. He saw his son the night fever took him, begging Samuel not to let go. Samuel cleared his throat, forcing his voice steady. "Ain't seen no girl?" The hoofbeats shifted outside. A pause, then a chuckle, low and knowing. "That's so? Funny thing, Greaves, you never were much of a liar." The knock stopped. Silence again. Then the sound of rain snapping, hooves grinding against the frozen dirt. For a moment, Samuel thought maybe, just maybe, they were riding on. But then he caught it. A whisper under the barn's slats. Boots in the dirt. Too soft for a man riding away. Someone hadn't left. Someone was still out there, listening. Samuel pulled the rifle close and set the girl deeper into the shadows. His jaw clenched. He'd made his choice. And choices in the West always came with a price. "Greaves!" The voice came from the dark, not 10 steps from the barn door. Not loud, not threatening, just there. Samuel's stomach turned cold. The girl stiffened beneath the hay, every breath a quake. "I ain't looking for trouble," the voice continued, but trouble's got a way of finding you, don't it? Step out. Let's talk eye to eye." Samuel didn't move. The rifle's weight felt heavier than it ever had. His finger hovered near the trigger. Then another sound, the groan of leather, the faint clink of a spur shifting against stone. Whoever lingered wasn't alone. The girl's hand rose, trembling, and she mouthed something he almost couldn't catch. "Please." The silence between them dragged, stretched thin as wire. Samuel thought of the man he used to be, before death hollowed him out, before his land became little more than dirt and fences. That man might have opened the door, stood tall, and dared the dark to strike first, but that man had been buried with his family. And yet, here he was again, cornered by fate. Samuel finally spoke, his voice low, steady. "Barn's mine. Ain't nothing in here that belongs to you." For a heartbeat, no answer. Then the voice outside hardened. "You're a fool, Greaves. She's marked. You know what that means." Samuel's grip faltered just a breath. "They know I saw." Before he could speak, another voice, further off, harsher, impatient, cut through. "Burn him out if you have to. That girl don't live to see another sunrise." The girl's eyes went wide, shimmering with tears she refused to let fall. She shook her head, mouthing the words again. "Don't let them take me." Samuel's chest heaved. Fire. That was their answer. Same as always, torch and iron. He felt the barn around him suddenly as something fragile, flammable. His horses shifted, sensing the storm building outside. He thought of running. He thought of handing her over. He thought of fighting, though he hadn't drawn on a man in years. Every path looked like death waiting. The crunch of boots moved closer, one step at a time, deliberate. The door hinge rattled under a testing pull. Samuel leveled the rifle, breath shallow. If they came through, someone would bleed before the night was done. The barn door creaked, just an inch, then another, and from the shadows outside, a face leaned in, lit by the faint glow of a torch. The torchlight painted the intruder's face in gold and shadow, hard eyes, scar on his cheek, the kind of man who'd done killing and learned to sleep after. He scanned the barn, slow, searching. Samuel held his breath, finger steady on the trigger. But then the horses screamed, thrashing against their stalls, spooked by the fire's glow. The scarred man cursed and yanked the door shut again. Outside, voices barked, arguing low. Samuel caught fragments. "Too many eyes on him? Not tonight? Wait till dawn?" Hoofbeats pulled away, fainter this time, until only the hush of wind remained. Inside, the barn went still again. Samuel let out a long breath he hadn't realized he had been holding. His arms trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of choice pressing harder than the rifle itself. He looked at the girl. She hadn't moved, hadn't even blinked. Her nails were dug into her palms, blood beating. "They're gone, for now," he murmured. She flinched at his voice, then blinked like waking from a dream. "They'll come back," she said, voice hoarse. "They always come back." Samuel crouched beside her. Up close, he could see she wasn't older than 16, though the scars on her arms made her look ancient in suffering. He reached for the canteen on the wall and held it out. "Drink." She stared, untrusting, but her throat worked dry. Slowly she took it. The water dribbled at first, then she drank deep, as if the act itself was a lifeline. "What's your name?" he asked. Her lips trembled. "Maria." Samuel nodded once. "Well, Maria, you're safe here tonight?" Her gaze darted to the barn door, then back to him. "You don't understand. That mark, they won't stop. They think it makes me cursed. Property." She spat the word like poison. "I'm not. I ain't." Samuel swallowed hard. He remembered his boy clutching his Bible, whispering fever prayers. He remembered telling him everything would be all right, even when it wasn't. "You're not property," Samuel said quietly. "Not while you're under my roof." For the first time, Maria's eyes softened, though her shoulders stayed rigid, ready to run. She looked at him like she wanted to believe, like she needed to. Samuel reached into his pocket, pulled out a locket, worn brass, his wife's face inside, faded but gentle. He held it where Maria could see. "I lost her. Lost my boy, too. Didn't save him. But maybe tonight, I do different." Her lips parted, trembling. She touched the locket with one careful finger, as though afraid it might vanish. And in that silence, a fragile thread of trust wove between them. Dawn bled over the hills, painting the ranch in pale fire. Samuel stood at the barn door, rifle in hand, eyes set on the tree line. He hadn't slept. Neither had Maria. The world outside was too still, the kind of stillness that waits for a match to strike. "They'll come," she whispered behind him. "I know," Samuel said, and come they did. By mid-morning, 4 riders broke from the horizon, torches strapped to their saddles, rifles glinting. Same men as before, scarred, hardened, merciless. They rode slow, deliberate, like they already knew the end. Samuel stepped out into the yard. His boots sank into the frost, rifle slung but ready. Maria stayed in the shadows of the barn, clutching the brass locket he'd given her to hold. The scarred leader reined his horse, eyes narrowing. "Greaves, you had a chance to hand her over clean. Don't make us burn you with her." Samuel's jaw tightened. "She ain't yours. She's marked." The man leaned forward, torchlight catching the jagged scar on his cheek. "You know what that means. You've seen what happens to the ones who carry it." Samuel's silence was answer enough. The leader's smile was cruel. "Then you'll share her fate." Rifles shifted, hooves stamped. For a heartbeat, Samuel thought this would be it. 1 man against 4, another grave waiting in his earth. But then Maria stepped out. Her bare feet crunched against the frost, her hair tangled, face hollow from running, yet her voice cut sharp and clear. "I ain't cursed. I ain't property. You'll have to kill me to take me." The men laughed, short, sharp, ugly. But Samuel didn't laugh. Pride, fierce and unexpected, surged in his chest. He stepped forward, rifle raised, placing himself between her and their guns. "Then you kill me first." The yard went still. A bird cried somewhere distant. Scarred cheek studied him long, then spat in the dirt. "Not worth the powder," he muttered. He yanked his reins, turning his horse. "She'll die on her own. They always do." The others hesitated, then followed. Hooves thundered away, fading into the hills. Silence fell again, heavier than before. Samuel lowered the rifle, breath ragged. Maria trembled behind him, clutching the locket like it was her own heartbeat. She whispered, "Why'd you do it?" Samuel turned, eyes tired but steady. "Because once, someone should have done it for me." Her tears came then, silent, hot against the morning frost. And as the sun climbed higher, 2 broken souls stood together in the quiet yard, not healed, not safe, but no longer alone. The wind carried the last word Samuel spoke, soft as prayer. "You're home now."